Somewhere in your kitchen right now, there's a product quietly draining money from your wallet, and you probably think it is saving you time. Households across the country are throwing away well over $1,500 a year on groceries they never actually needed, and the stores behind the counter know it better than you do. They have built an entire system designed to make you pay more for less, and today that system gets exposed piece by piece. Stick around, because by the end of this list, you might realize some of these traps are already sitting in your fridge or your pantry at this very moment. Are you ready to see exactly how much of your money has quietly disappeared? Let us start peeling back the curtain. First up, refrigerated cookie dough. That tube sitting in the dairy section might be one of the most absurd tricks the grocery industry has ever pulled off. Somehow shoppers were convinced that combining flour, sugar, butter, and eggs had become too difficult a task for a normal evening. So instead, people hand over roughly $7 for a tube of dough that tastes more like sweetened plastic than anything baked with love. And let us be honest with ourselves, those cookies never taste like something made at home. There's always that strange chemical aftertaste and a rubbery texture that lingers far longer than it should. That happens because manufacturers pack the dough with preservatives and cheap oils so it can survive weeks in cold storage without spoiling. Meanwhile, real homemade dough takes only minutes to prepare and tastes dramatically better. You can even freeze the extra portions and bake fresh cookies whenever the craving strikes. When you buy the pre-made version, you are not paying for a better cookie. You are paying extra because a machine somewhere stirred the ingredients instead of you. And once stores realized this worked, they figured out how to make breakfast lazier too. Is there anything grocery stores will not repackage and mark up? 19th on the list, store-bought pancake batter. Let's not sugarcoat it. This stuff sitting inside a squeeze bottle for weeks is genuinely questionable. It looks fine pouring into the pan, but somehow the finished pancakes taste sweet and artificial at the same time. Pancakes rank among the simplest foods a person can make. Flour, eggs, milk, and baking powder, that's essentially the entire recipe. Earlier generations made pancakes half asleep without needing a plastic container labeled with some fancy buttermilk branding. But grocery chains discovered that shoppers will pay more if a single step gets removed from the cooking process. And that right there is the whole scheme. You are handing over premium prices simply because someone combined flour and liquid ahead of time. Homemade batter, on the other hand, tastes richer, costs a fraction as much, and does not emerge from your fridge resembling a science experiment gone wrong. If you have ever felt cheated walking out of a grocery store, hit that like button now, because what comes next will hit close to home. 18th on the list, pre-made guacamole. We've all stood in the produce section staring at a brownish tub priced twice as high as a bag of avocados. This is the definition of a laziness surcharge. The issue goes beyond price. It comes down to chemistry. Avocados are notoriously fragile, and the moment they meet oxygen, they begin turning an unappetizing shade of gray. To prevent that, manufacturers load these tubs with preservatives, acidity regulators, and occasionally fillers just to maintain that green appearance. What you get is not fresh, creamy texture. It's a chemically treated paste. Making your own version takes about 3 minutes. Mash an avocado, squeeze in some lime, sprinkle salt, and you're finished. Want to get creative? Toss in diced onion or a dash of chili powder. By purchasing the packaged version, you are paying a markup of roughly 300% for something that tastes noticeably worse and contains ingredients your body simply does not require. It's convenience dressed up as a solution when really it's a scam. Grab real avocados and keep your cash. Unfortunately, the fake health food trend was only getting started. 17th, protein snack bars. Grocery chains figured out something clever. If the word protein appears in bold letters on the front, nobody bothers reading the ingredient list on the back. That is precisely how candy bars transformed into so-called fitness essentials. You know the ones, plastered with massive numbers claiming enormous amounts of protein, as though a nutrition scientist personally designed each bar. Flip it over, though, and the ingredients read like a chemistry final exam. Sugar alcohols, syrups, preservatives, artificial flavoring. Half of these terms sound like they belong in a printer cartridge rather than food. And somehow these tiny bars cost more than an actual meal.
That is the funniest part of this whole situation. You could eat simple whole foods like eggs, yogurt, chicken, oats, peanut butter, or tuna and get more real protein for less money and dramatically better nutrition. But companies understand that people crave shortcuts, so they wrapped dessert in athletic marketing and convinced everyone it mattered. Once stores realized wellness branding was profitable, even chopped lettuce became a luxury item. Could something as basic as salad really be turned into a scam? Absolutely. 16th, bagged salad kits. Some shoppers are paying prices you would expect at a restaurant for lettuce that has already been chopped and bagged. Even the grocery chains probably cannot believe they got away with this one. You grab the bag because it feels quick, healthy, and responsible. The packaging says fresh and garden style, and suddenly you feel like a nutrition champion. Then you open it at home, and reality sets in fast. The lettuce is already wilting, the dressing packet contains enough sodium to preserve a mummy, and somehow the bag includes exactly 6 croutons, 2 shavings of cheese, and a wave of disappointment. Buying whole heads of lettuce along with cucumbers and tomatoes separately would cost considerably less, taste fresher, and last much longer in your fridge. Grocery stores took some of the cheapest vegetables in the entire building, chopped them up, sealed them in shiny plastic, and rebranded the whole thing as convenience. That is not meal preparation. That is surrender wrapped in cellophane. 15th, pre-packaged deli trays. Those plastic trays sitting near the entrance, dressed up and ready for a party, might be the most expensive way imaginable to admit you forgot guests were coming. We have all panicked at some point when company shows up unexpectedly, and there they are, sweating cheese cubes, stacked crackers, and salami trying desperately to look gourmet. Somehow that pile of snacks costs around $25, as though a professional chef arranged it rather than an exhausted employee finishing a long shift. Stores can sense your desperation, and they know you are buying convenience because thinking clearly feels impossible in the moment. Here's the truth, though. You are looking at maybe $8 worth of actual ingredients. The remaining $17 is what I like to call the emergency panic tax. Next time, buy the ingredients separately and build your own tray. You will end up with triple the amount of food and far more variety. Nobody behind the deli counter will take it personally. 14th, bottled smoothies marketed as healthy. Those chilled smoothies lining grocery store coolers are essentially milkshakes dressed in athletic wear. Flip the bottle around sometime and you will spot words like wellness, immunity, and completely natural. Then scroll further down the ingredient list and you will find preservatives, stabilizers, added sugar, and concentrated syrups. Some of these bottles pack more sugar than a can of soda. But because there's a picture of mango on the label and the bottle happens to be green, you suddenly feel like a wellness expert. Here's what really gets me. Most of these bottles cost somewhere between $5 and $9 each. For that same amount, you could buy real fruit and make smoothies at home for nearly an entire week. Do you really believe a plastic bottle knows more about nutrition than you do? 13th, shredded cheese sold in bags. This one deserves its own spotlight because the markup is genuinely embarrassing. A block of cheese costs noticeably less per ounce than the pre-shredded version sitting right beside it. Manufacturers coat shredded cheese with anti-caking agents just to keep the strands from clumping together in the bag, which means you are not just paying extra, you are also eating powdery additives you never asked for. And the texture when it melts often looks like it survived some sort of small electrical fire. The wildest part is that shredding a block yourself with a simple grater takes less time than waiting for your oven to preheat. At some point, we all need to grab that grater and reclaim a bit of dignity, one block of cheddar at a time. 12th on the list falls into the same category, seasoned rice and pasta mixes. Grocery stores could season a broken sandal with garlic powder and somehow still convince shoppers to pay $9 for it. That is essentially what these boxed rice and pasta kits are, small portions of inexpensive carbohydrates paired with a dusty seasoning packet pretending to be a complete dinner. Creamy herb rice, cheesy pasta shells, buttery noodles. The box always looks like a professional chef styled the photograph in a candlelit studio. Then you open it and discover barely enough food to satisfy one modest appetite for about 10 minutes.
And do not even get me started on the sodium content. It looks like it was engineered by someone trying to preserve a shipwreck. Rice and pasta rank among the cheapest staples on the planet. You could easily create a larger, tastier version at home using basic pantry ingredients you already own. 11th, instant meals that only require water. Microwave rice cups, flavored instant oatmeal, and instant grain bowls might represent one of the cleverest convenience tricks ever invented. Companies took some of the most affordable, easiest to prepare foods on Earth and rebranded them as premium products the instant hot water gets involved.
The packaging always promises a fantasy. Then you open the container and find a few spoonfuls of oats, powdered flavoring, and enough added sugar to wake a hibernating bear. One single serving of instant oatmeal can cost roughly the same as an entire container of plain oats that would feed you for days. That is the detail most people overlook. You are not really paying for food, you are paying for the emotional comfort of convenience when you feel rushed, tired, or simply checked out before breakfast even begins. Meanwhile, plain oats and rice sit quietly on the shelf doing the exact same job for a fraction of the cost. 10th, single-serve coffee capsules. I used to genuinely believe these tiny pods were one of the greatest inventions in modern history. Half asleep, I would pop one in, press a button, and instantly feel like my life was together again. Then one day, I actually calculated the math. Those small capsules charge prices comparable to a coffee shop, and once you start buying them weekly, the spending adds up faster than you would expect. Coffee companies are absolutely counting on that pattern continuing. Let us be honest, they are not really selling coffee anymore, they're selling convenience to exhausted people running on fumes. And do not forget the waste. Those plastic capsules pile up like evidence of a caffeine habit backed by a massive advertising budget. The environmental impact alone should give anyone pause. Eventually, I had to admit the truth. I was not paying for premium coffee, I was paying a hefty fee just to avoid 30 seconds of effort each morning. 9th, single-use bottled water. Before anyone accuses me of discouraging hydration, let us clarify something important. Keeping water available at home is a smart habit. The real issue is treating tiny individual bottles like some sort of luxury lifestyle choice. You grab one because you're thirsty, toss another in the car for later, and suddenly you're hauling a case of 24 bottles into your house every single week. Before long, you've spent a small fortune on water that disappears in 3 sips, leaving empty plastic containers rolling around your back seat. Here's the twist. Half the time, you are simply buying filtered tap water wearing a much more expensive disguise. If hydration truly matters to you, install a solid filter on your tap and carry a reusable bottle instead. Otherwise, you are not paying for hydration anymore, you are paying a hefty convenience tax wrapped in disposable plastic. Stay smart about it, not just thirsty. 8th, pre-made sandwich packs. Shop while hungry, and suddenly those grab-and-go sandwich packs near the checkout start looking irresistible. You know the ones. A tiny sandwich, a tiny bag of chips, and a small drink, somehow priced around $10 or $12 total. Yet most of these sandwiches taste like disappointment wrapped in plastic film. The bread manages to feel cold and soggy simultaneously, the lettuce looks exhausted beyond repair, the turkey slices are thinner than your patience after a long, draining day. But when hunger strikes and exhaustion sets in, rational thinking tends to disappear. That is exactly the trick stores rely on. They understand that tired, hungry shoppers will pay almost anything for something fast. Meanwhile, you could easily assemble a larger, fresher sandwich at home for a fraction of that price. These packs are not really selling quality food, they're selling convenience to stomachs that made the decision before the brain even had a chance to weigh in. 7th, pre-cut fruits and vegetables. No amount of exhaustion justifies paying double simply because someone else sliced your melon for you. Stores absolutely love this section because the profit margins are enormous. You walk in for basic groceries, spot bright containers of sliced fruit glowing under perfect lighting, and suddenly paying $8 for fruit starts to feel oddly normal. Here's the catch though. Once produce gets cut, it loses freshness quickly. The texture changes, shelf life shrinks, and even flavor begins to fade. So you end up spending more money on produce that is genuinely worse in quality. You're paying extra purely because somebody sliced it ahead of time. Meanwhile, whole fruits and vegetables sit just a few feet away for nearly half the price, and cutting them yourself takes only a few minutes. Stores are betting heavily that you are too tired or too busy to bother doing it yourself. And finally, sitting at the very top of this list, pre-marinated and pre-seasoned meats. This might be the clearest example of how thoroughly grocery stores understand shopper psychology. You walk past the meat section, spot chicken coated in a savory garlic herb glaze or a sweet smoky sauce, and your brain immediately thinks dinner is basically finished. That reaction is exactly the trap. Retailers want your brain to switch off before you even glance at the price tag. Once you actually compare numbers, the markup becomes genuinely ridiculous. You're paying extra money for sauce, salt, and seasoning you likely already own in your own kitchen cabinet. And here is something most people never consider. Heavy marinades can sometimes mask meat that is not as fresh as it should be. Strong sauces and dark seasoning blends make it much harder to notice changes in texture, color, or overall freshness. Then factor in the sodium content. Some of these packages contain shockingly high amounts of salt. If you already own olive oil, paprika, and basic seasoning at home, why continue paying someone else to combine them for you? So there you have it, 20 different ways grocery stores have quietly trained shoppers into paying more for less. Hopefully your next trip down those aisles feels a little less like a financial ambush and a little more like an informed decision. If this video opened your eyes even slightly, do me a favor and tap that like button. It genuinely helps this channel grow and reach more people who deserve to know these tricks too. And remember to keep an eye out for more breakdowns like this one right here on my channel, because there is always another aisle hiding another scam. Which of these 20 surprised you the most? Drop a comment and let me know, because chances are you are not the only one who has fallen for at least a few of these without realizing it. Until next time, shop smarter, question the packaging, and never let convenience quietly drain your wallet without a fight.